Wait, is that our Wheel family?
It is our Wheel family.
Wheel family, how y'all doing?
Wheel family.
Welcome back. It's so good to see all of you all again. Listen, yes. I'm your boy James Earl.
And I'm Kenyatta.
And welcome back to another Wheel Conversation. Let's just take a minute to talk about these conversations, y'all. They have been life-changing. Just tell me, how has your life been changed? What has the Wheel Conversation done for you?
It's for me, it's just having my own personal mentorship with Pastor Tubman and his guests, and just to be able to sit there and take it all in and apply it. You guys, it has been life-changing. I love it. You hear me what I'm saying? And I don't say that often, but I love it.
Let me just say, I've already filled up one whole notebook. I'm going to Walmart to get me another one because this is so much information and it's good information. And this information that we're sharing with you, and we're sharing it for free. We ain't even making you pay for it. You could just stream live and tune in.
Free 99.
Free 99. Now listen. Let's tell them how they can sow into our great ministry.
Yes. You guys can sow into good ground because that's what this is. By texting to give, text WHEEL, W-H-E-E-L, to 28950. Again, that is text WHEEL, W-H-E-E-L, to 28950.
Listen, you all go ahead and get your sew on because we got so much in store for you today. We have an exciting conversation already planned. I'm not going to tell you about it. You just got to hold on to your seats and prepare for takeoff because each week we go higher and higher and higher. We're going to go ahead and toss it over to Pastor Tubman. Pastor Tubman, take it away.
Will family, how are you tonight? I'm excited about our conversation. I have with me a good friend of mine, not only a good friend, a fraternity brother, all right? I'm gonna tell you what's even crazier. There's two noops in here having a conversation, and the person that owns the station is a noob. So I believe God is really, really, really pleased.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We're gonna have a great conversation tonight. Of course, these sessions are professional development. We're always trying to not only feed you spiritual food, but give you something practical that can help you as you go towards trying to build your company, tries to go for it if you're managing a company, whatever that is that you're doing, your 9 to 5 or your 24/7, we're trying to make sure we bring people that are doing it at a high level. And Lincoln Stevens tonight is a powerful man. He's an entrepreneur that's activating in several different fields, okay? As far as nonprofit businesses are concerned, social, digital. He's gonna talk to you tonight, and we're gonna lay some foundations on what it's like to build with diversity issues and learning how to get in and get things seen in this huge digital space that we live in today. Well, welcome tonight. I'm so excited that you're with us. Why don't you just look in that camera and tell everybody, who is Lincoln?
Thanks for having me, first of all, first and foremost, brother. So who's Lincoln? First, I am the son of Calvin and Sandra, a father to Montgomery, born and raised here in Dallas, Texas. Went to school at the University of Missouri, studied journalism. University of Missouri has the first journalism school in the world.
Wow.
So I went, arguably one of the best. I went to school there and studied strategic communications, which is advertising, essentially, work that advertising agencies do. So I studied that, left there, worked at a couple of agencies. After I graduated, worked on Cadillac and Hummer, creating ads for them, and Chevrolet, PepsiCo, across the board from Pepsi to Lay's and Frito. So I've sold cars and chips and soda. And then moved to Chicago. I had the pleasure of working for an agency, one of the largest independently owned and Black woman-owned agencies, Carol H. Williams Advertising. I worked there in Chicago. And when I was there, I asked the question. I had always asked the question when I worked at the agencies here in Dallas, because I was one of the only people that looked like me. So I was one of the only Black people and one of the only Black men at some of these companies. And I always wondered, why is that so? I mean, I understood going to some of the schools that I went to even before undergrad, of why there might be some diversity issues, but why specifically this industry, what's there. And so I learned about efforts that people have made now 55 years ago to bring more diversity into the advertising and marketing fields. So it had been a long time. And so I recognized, well, what do we need to do now? Because we still have some of the same issues that they were facing. So a business partner and now, and one of my good friends and fellow fraternity brother of ours, just thought about what more that we could do and what we should be doing with our lives and with our knowledge. And when we first started working, we used to throw parties.
Yeah, of course.
We got out of, in college and then out of college, we used to throw parties, but really meaningful parties. I mean, really and truly, like we did a 20s theme party that was like a speakeasy. It was really cool. But we knew how to bring people together. We knew how to determine what they wanted and what they needed. And that translated into our work as in marketing and advertising. And I remember Larry, my partner, he said, it's not that we didn't and don't know this stuff. We just we didn't know what to call it.
Wow.
Now we're knowing what you call this process, right? And there are so many people, if you have the power of persuasion, if you can persuade someone to go to a party, or if you can persuade your family to get together for the holidays, or someone to, do any specific action, you can be a marketer, but people may not know all of this terminology and everything like that.
Let me jump in there because of what you just said. How did you know? All right, like you said, you're telling us now, if you know you have the power of persuasion, then you can be a marketer. Now, you had already been working for these different massive companies. You discovered that there were some diversity issues. Yep. You found out later that there are some things that we can do to broaden the scope and to even the playing field for our people. And as you start throwing these parties, you're realizing we can do this. What was that process? What was it? Was it the party, or was it the fact that it was the power of persuasion? And then how did you monetize it?
Yeah, I think so. When I moved to Chicago, my partner moved to London to get his master's degree.
Okay.
And so we started thinking, by that time, our partying days were, our throwing partying days were over. We decided we needed to be doing something positive. And if we're recognizing that there's a lack of diversity, how can we make a difference in that? So once you've recognized it, if, like people say, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So what is the solution, right? And we recognized, because we were able to monetize a variety of different types of things that we were doing, concerts we threw, or just different types of events, how do we bring more people into this field so that they can know how to do it, right? We've always been inspired by, even by the Bible verse, harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. Pray ye that the Lord of the harvest sends laborers into this field. So in this field of advertising and marketing, where there are so many opportunities, particularly we as people of color don't know that it exists. When we go into schools and talk to individuals, we always say, raise your hand if you've ever seen if you've ever watched TV. Keep your hand up if you've ever seen a commercial. Keep your hand up if you've ever seen a Nike commercial or Pepsi ad, let's say. Keep your hand up if you know the name of Pepsi's advertising agency, or who buys their media, or anything like that. All hands are down for the teachers, parents, students, everyone, because people don't understand what it takes to work behind the field. And so we had to do more. And so we said, okay, how can we effectively bring more people in, because the awareness is so low,
yes, sir. Right?
And so we were actually watching TV show, I Want to Work for Diddy. Mm-hmm. And there was another show, a BET College Hill Interns. And in that, so it was a spinoff of College Hill. And they created that show because Burrell, which was one of the first and still exists, black-owned agencies that have been really successful in breaking into a lot of corporate clients over the years. They got their clients, Toyota and McDonald's, who they still have today, to sponsor the show and give the students that were in college, the individuals that were in College Hill, made them interns and for them to work on projects.
Wow.
This was on BET. But they didn't lean into like the work aspect. And I thought, man, we could do something similar to that, similar to these shows that are showing certain aspects, but drive it home to show more of the behind the scenes work that we need to see. I appreciate when you and April talk about, specifically lately, when you were talking about, I think Jamel runs the TV, and there's all these people behind the scenes.
Yeah.
We need to do more of that. And so we said, how can we do more of that? So we said, let's create a TV show and have individuals that'll come together and work at, create their own agency, get mentored, work with top clients, live together and so forth. And so when we were thinking about a name for the show, we asked some friends of ours why they got into marketing and advertising. And a few people said they were inspired by Eddie Murphy's character in the film Boomerang.
Wow.
So his name was Marcus Graham.
Yeah.
And so we said, okay, well, there's all these shows, Project Runway, Project Greenlight. So we said, okay, let's create our show, and it's going to be called Marcus Graham Project, right? Boomerang was 15 years old at that time. Now, 15 years later, we're now have been around for 15 years. Boomerang celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. What we wanted to create as a TV show has now become our core program and our training vehicle to bring more people into this field.
15 years later.
Yeah, and when we started raising money for our training programs, it's in 2008, right after Obama was elected, and I was in Chicago when that happened. I remember sitting on my balcony and asking God, what should I do next? We have these sketches and ideas for what we want to do with our nonprofit. What should I do? And I stood out on my balcony, and God said, go home and get that thing started fully. So I quit my job, moved back. I had already actually had a one-way ticket back home for Thanksgiving. So I moved back home on my birthday and have been running our nonprofit ever since. And we started fundraising in the worst economic downturn, right? So we didn't have unlike businesses that have a product to sell, inventory or a consultancy or anything like that, we were needing to raise money so that we can train individuals to go out and get jobs and so forth. And so it was a challenge, but we saw immediate success, and that success was in recognizing this is what you are absolutely supposed to be doing.
Let's talk about the challenges.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't realize, even though God calls you to something, a lot of people seem to believe God calls you to it, it's going to be completely easy because his hand is on it. And that's not always true.
Yeah.
There's challenges that come with the call, and let's talk about some of those challenges. You're a young African-American male. Of course, we know that's a challenge within itself. You already talked about the economy being terrible.
Yeah.
That's a challenge within itself.
Yeah.
Then you walked away from a job. Yeah. That is a challenge within itself.
Yeah.
So I would like for you to address to the Will family how to handle those challenges when you're trying to create a company.
Yeah. I mean, I think first and foremost, the challenges that you just outlined are some of them. There were more that kept on showing themselves up.
Yeah.
I could not have, and we could not have even been moved through some of those without a very clear and concise vision and a plan and a written down plan for that vision. And so we had written out what we wanted to do for the next 50 years and how big we wanted to see it. And so whenever a challenge came, we just had to figure out, okay, how do we overcome this? Because we still have to get there.
Yeah.
Because we already see where we need to be going. And so from an economic perspective, raising money in that time period was difficult, particularly when you mentioned being a black man. I remember talking to one individual that worked at an agency who went up the food chain to the holding company that owns this agency. And when they brought our program, which, by the way, I didn't mention this, when we first started our program, it was squarely focused on training African American men. There were 1% of our industry at that time were black men. We were the most underrepresented group of people,
Wow.
period, in our industry, and still one of the most underrepresented racial groups, racial and gender groups in our industry. So we were doing that. So someone took our proposal to him, and we were raising money, and I'll talk about raising money in a second. And he told this other senior executive, this is too controversial, just because it was focused on black men.
Wow.
Now, I could see if it was controversial if we were taking to this company something and it was about gang violence or anything like this, but it was not. We're doing a training program for people that are coming out of college and coming out potentially with their master's degrees. What's controversial about that? So those types of things kept on popping up, and it showed us there's actually a will not to do this.
Wow.
So if people have been working on this type of thing for 55 years now, this year, it's been a long time. There's actually a concerted will for some of these companies not to want to be diverse, not want other perspectives there. Because if other perspectives come in and those other perspectives end up being in leadership roles, what happens to you?
You're gone.
You're gone.
Yeah.
And that's where there's so much fear around that in this country, about losing your place while making room or while other people are coming.
Do you think that's interconnected with institutional racism?
Absolutely. Our industry is one of the last bastions of institutional racism. Why? Because in advertising, the corporations that are putting their dollar, you cannot watch the Super Bowl without the commercials.
That's right, yeah.
Right? The players, absolutely. You want to watch the game, but they're selling those commercials that average $7 million for 30 seconds, right? Though you can't watch TV and film and that type of thing without advertising dollars to support that. And so what it goes to is the power of how people want to have control over what you see, and then therefore how we see ourselves, or not see ourselves at all. Right? What's the truth?
As they control the narrative, or you guys control the narrative.
We have to bring more people into this field so that we can take control of our own narrative back.
Wow. I think it's so interesting because there are some conversations about the Bible in DC, the museum that they built in DC, and then they're getting ready to do the exact same thing in Africa, in Ghana. And the issue is Ghana, they're going to tell the story from our side.
Right.
So just like you said, whoever is controlling the narrative, that controls our perspective.
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting to hear you say that, and that our faces are needed in those rooms.
It is.
So those of you that are watching tonight, and you've been trying to figure out what am I going to do? Because some of you are 18, 19, 20, and then some of you are 40, 45, 50. It's not too late, and it's not too early. It's just right. The time is right. And I just want you to pitch to them real quick, because that's what you do. Talk to them and tell them, get in this field.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we were talking a little bit before we started, particularly around digital marketing. And there are 93 million new cell phone users around the world.
93 million.
So when we think about that, there are so many people that are trying to get share of attention, share of voice. And because of the increase in users and the increase of content and so forth, the demand for people that have digital marketing skills, whether that's data analytics, customer experience, or just the creative aspect of it is on an increase. There's a 1,164% increase in the demand for digital marketers increase from 2012 2020 to 2021, and that's doing nothing but going up. So what does that mean? That means that there's an opportunity for you to go learn those skills. There are certifications. There's free classes. HubSpot Academy. Google it. You can take free classes to learn how to place Facebook ads, learn how to understand the data and all that type of thing. And people in this country are looking for those folks.
They're looking for people.
I mean, and they're well-paying jobs. I mean, some of these jobs are starting out at $60,000, $70,000, and they can go up to $200,000, $300,000 as you go up and climb. And
say that one more time, because that's what they need to hear. That piece from 60K to
to 200,000, 300,000. I mean, there are alumni of our program that were like, I'm doing this negotiation on salary, and they're out in San Francisco, and they're 7 years in their work, and they're negotiating from $180,000 to $200,000.
7 years out of your school.
Exactly.
Wow.
And I'm like, man, maybe I should have not been training you. Maybe I need to go do that myself. I'm like, man, do you understand? You are making way more than I am. But we have to be there, and that's shifting the dynamics of people's families.
Absolutely.
Some of these people are making twice as much as their parents ever made combined, right? And that's great. But they're they're on the path to being able to do more. There's plenty of opportunity.
Lincoln, we're going to take a pause real quick. Listen, I know you should be blessed. I'm not even into marketing. I'm not even into advertisement. But in reality, I am. Mm-hmm. I may not be doing it for business, but I need it for what I do as a communicator. Yeah. And so the more knowledge I can gain, the better I can choose the people that are assisting me. I'll know if they're really doing a phenomenal job or helping us maximize our reach and what we need to do. So if I were you and I was looking for a career, I'd definitely start looking in this direction. And if not, listen to the principles, because he's talking about starting a company, what it takes. You heard him outline, I had to have a vision. We had to have a vision before we did anything. Then he said, we wrote it down. It was written, So take the steps that you're hearing and apply them to your life or to your situation. What we want to do right now is we're getting ready to all do something together. We're going to worship the Lord in giving. We have an amazing God, the one and only God that we serve. And if he's who he is, who you believe him to be, then the value is always placed on him. It's not placed on you. It's not about the money you're losing. You don't lose money when you're giving to the kingdom. You're sowing into the kingdom of God because it's good to give. That's one of the things I tell people all the time. You don't give because you have to give. You give because it's good to give. It's a blessing to give. It's more of a blessing to give than it is actually to receive. And those are kingdom principles. And tonight, I want you to consider sowing into the kingdom of God. The potter's house is a house that we know that flows from the spirit of generosity. And as the wheel continues to turn, it couldn't turn without the house's generosity. And those of you that are on tonight that are from the house, outside of the house, e-churches, from e-church members that are in the house, we want you to consider sowing into the kingdom tonight with us, with myself, with Lincoln, our team. We're all sowing into the kingdom. Our worship team's going to minister to us in song while you give. You can find the information on the bottom of the screen. And then right after this worship song, we're going to come back and we're going to get into some how-tos. How do we make it happen? And then a few little special pieces that we want to do. Let's go to worship.
Hey, Will family, we're so excited that you chose to worship with us. Right where you are, lift your hands and lift your voice and say something to God right here. Come on, lift your voice.
Everybody say, oh. Little bit splendor. So unto you we render this song to you, our Savior. You are powerful. You are beautiful. You are glorious. That's who you are. You are powerful. You are beautiful. You are glorious.
Are you hearing what I'm hearing right now?
I'm hearing it.
These conversations are absolutely amazing. And let me tell you what's so surprising to me. Every week, it's something new they're dropping in my spirit. My notebook is already full. I got to go to Walgreens and get another one. It's so much vital information that's helping me so that I can help other people, right?
Yes, and it's very thought-provoking.
Yes.
It gets you, you know, one moment you're having these thoughts like, okay, I knew it that way. And then the next is like, wait a minute, is it okay? And it's just so much information that you're just getting week after week. And just with this, it's just have been great and awesome.
Yes. Listen, we want you all to keep tuning in every Sunday. Like I said, we have so many great things coming up, just like our worship experience that we have coming up. If you think the conversation is something, you ought to be in the building and experience this great level of worship, right? Tell me how you feeling when we're in the room and we're worshiping. Tell me about how you feeling about worship.
One thing is I am learning, especially with Pastor Tubman and these messages, is that our worship is our own experience with God and our relationship with God.
Definitely so.
So
definitely
it's just
so.
not tuned to song and dance.
Yes.
It's like whatever you feel you worship with God, that's what you do.
Yes.
Authentic. I love it.
Authentic.
Oh,
And
yes.
listen, we here for Worship 365. So it's not just on Sundays. We're
Every
going the
day.
whole year strong. Every day
Every
we are
day.
worshiping. But you all stay right there. We
Yes.
have so much more coming up. Pastor Tubman, take it away.
I'm so excited that I get to serve with an amazing worship team, our fine arts team. I love them dearly. I love what they do. I'm so excited, and thank you again. Those of you that decided you were going to partner with the ministry tonight, and so thank you. That particular prompt is going to run across the bottom of the screen periodically for the rest of the service for those that are logging on throughout this broadcast so that they can continue to sow. And I want you to encourage them as they pop on, because you'll see them when they come on. Ask them to sow into the kingdom. Let me take a minute and just pray real quick. Father, we thank you for the opportunity, for what you've done tonight, the conversation that we have heard thus far, the singing that we have heard, the music that we've heard thus far. Father, thank you for everyone who had it in their heart to sow into the kingdom of God, into this wonderful church, the Potter's House. We thank you for our leaders. We give you glory for them. And we thank you for this wheel, for we know it would not turn if your hand was not on it. Bless everyone 30, 60 to 100-fold. In Jesus' name, amen. I am with Lincoln Stevens. Those of you that are just now logging in, you missed about a good 20-minute conversation about who he is and what he does. He is into advertisement, all types of advertisement and marketing, even digital marketing. He said something, 93 million new cell phone users this year, or was it last year?
It was in 2020.
2020. In 2020, 93 million people got phones. So that tells you that people are fighting for attention for all these new people, along with the other billion of people that already have cell phones. So what we want to talk about now, can you tell us, how do you start a business? A nonprofit business?
Fortunately, my dad's an entrepreneur. So I grew up around entrepreneurship, and I had ready access to being able to understand how to start a business and what it takes to run a business, and what it looks like behind the scenes, right? Because it doesn't always look as good as what you put out. But you know, it goes back to what we were talking about: having the vision, writing it down, having a clear plan, and for it to, particularly around a nonprofit, if you're serving people, then it should have nothing to do with you.
Wow.
Right? I think Bishop talked about that once. If you're starting a business and it's not for a greater good, then you shouldn't be doing it, right? But I mean, there are some fundamental steps, right? Going and getting your employee ID number, the EIN number from the federal government, being able to create your LLC or C Corp or S Corp and understanding.
I want to pause you right there.
Yeah.
Because people that have businesses know what those means. What is an LLC? What is a C Corp? Tell us what that is.
Yeah, so LLC is a limited liability company, and that's what we started first before we got the designation as a nonprofit, as a 501c3 nonprofit. There are different 501cs, 501c4s, and and organizations that are fraternal or sororities, or, lobbying organizations that are all nonprofits and so forth. But the difference for them has to do with partially ownership, liability, and tax implications, right? So if I'm a LLC, they might not be able to go after my individual finances or my house if the business goes wrong, because it's limited liability. It's for they'll go after the business's assets and not yours. So it's well worth looking into as you're starting a business, which one makes sense, and find the people. If you don't know it, I mean, we had to find the people. Fortunately, we had an attorney that said, hey, here's what you should do, but since you're going to start a nonprofit, here's the way that you have to look at it. And as we started the nonprofit and finally got the designation, it could at that time, so that was 2009 when we first made our application, it took no less than 6 months for you to even hear back from the IRS, right?
Right.
To determine whether you're going to do it. And so we did not want to wait to do the work until we got the designation. In fact, I think it's important, if you're starting a nonprofit, for you to just do the work first. See if you're cut out to do the work. See if you are going to, if there's going to be a result that's positive. We did everything at the beginning with nothing, with no money. In fact, our first office, we had an old table from my dad's office that he was downsizing, and and these old metal Sunday school chairs from my parents' church that I grew up in, the ones with the hole in it,
exactly
little heart or whatever. Yeah. So we had those, and we had a broken computer, 2 broken computers that our students use that was their video equipment. They literally took the laptop and the camera there and used it to shoot. So it's important to utilize what's in your hand, what's already there, right? And see if you can make an outcome out of it. When we started, earlier we were talking about raising money. When we started, and I was asking companies for sponsorship and donations for our efforts, and we were hit with some resistance, but also just flat out, I'm not responding to your email. I realized, actually God put in my mind, you're asking for too little.
Wow.
Because the people that understand what it takes to do a program where you're paying for housing, travel, and if you're going to have any level of staff or any of that type of thing, they're looking at this little $60,000 budget that you have and saying, you're probably not able to do that. The same program that we were trying to raise $60,000 for in 2009, it's a program that costs us, if we're just training 12 to 15 people, $350,000.
Wow.
So we were asking for too little. Same program, different perspective, and I was asking for too little because I did not know that I had the permission to ask for what it took.
Wow. That's a powerful statement right there. God. Whoa. Okay. Where did the revelation hit? When did you realize? What happened?
Someone said, and this was after we had started getting some media attention. So after our first program, we got on an industry trade publication, and then AT&T saw this video and story about us, and they gave us our first sponsorship, and we were working through that because that was the first time we'd worked in corporate sponsorship for what we were doing. And then we were in Ebony, we were in Black Enterprise, and all this type of thing. And so as the media attention was growing around what we were doing, which we had just started, someone said, as you're thinking about talking to these companies, as a mentor of mine, you are the most senior person at your company. So you need to be asking, or you need to be unafraid to talk to the most senior person at any company that you're talking to. You need to be prepared to do that. So are you prepared to have a conversation with the CEO of AT&T or PepsiCo or any of these companies, or even the head, we work with a lot of marketing organizations with the chief marketing officer and their team. Are you prepared to talk to them? But at some point in time, you'll need to be, because leaders that have vision should be talking to other leaders that have vision.
Yeah.
And that's not to discount anyone that's not at the top of their organization.
Right.
But you need to be unafraid to do that.
Was that a fear?
It was a little bit of fear. And and the fear actually had nothing to do with what we were doing.
Wow.
It was just a fear that I had of myself. And not fear of myself, but just fear within myself about other things that had nothing to do with what we were doing. And so when I was able to unlock that fear and be unapologetic and find myself, I was 3 years out of college when we started. I was still learning who I was.
Yeah.
So I had to find myself and then find my voice inside of what we were doing and being unafraid. I'll tell you, because we're talking about diversity and inclusion, it took until probably around 2011 for me to even, based upon somewhat the way I was raised or whatever, it took until around then for me to feel comfortable talking to white people and saying white people, right?
Saying white people in front of white people.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. Because we were talking about systematic racism, we were talking about diversity and inclusion. And so I had to recognize, why is that so?
Wow.
Why am I afraid to say this? Do you know what I'm saying? To call something what it is.
What it is,
to
yes.
speak the truth about it,
Yeah.
right? And so, having that permission was super helpful. And it just put everything else into place as we were looking to do it. And when we were talking to corporate sponsors and so forth, and I'm making the delineation as a nonprofit between sponsorship and donations, because we mostly get sponsorship from companies that are looking for talent, companies that are in the recognize the talent gap, and that are looking for us as a workforce solution.
Right.
And we had to start thinking as a for-profit business and thinking about not just accepting donations. We've received very little money from foundations and zero money from the government, right, for our program. But we had to start thinking more as a social enterprise. And if you're a nonprofit now, and a mentor said to me, he said, you have to think about what you're doing like the Girl Scouts. And so I was like, okay, you got to unpack this for me.
Yeah.
He said, the Girl Scouts as an organization empowers young girls to learn about themselves, learn about nature, learn about all these type of things. But the Girl Scout Cookies is a for-profit business that helps the Girl Scouts
That's right.
do what they do.
Do what they do.
So he said, what are your cookies? What are you going? I was like, okay, so what is that? What is the service that you're going to render? And part of ours is perspective. There are all these companies that, though some people don't want us there working behind the scenes, some do or did or still do, whatever, they can't be successful without us.
No.
We make culture. We make things hot.
Yes, we do.
Clubhouse was nothing until Black people got on it. Chris Lyons, who is going to be speaking at ILS, works for a company that invested in the Clubhouse, and they really brought cultural leaders and influencers onto that platform. And if you were on Clubhouse early, very, very early, and you saw when cultural influencers started getting on there, and when especially Black people got it on there, it just took off.
Yeah.
And that's every social media platform, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, people of color who are looking for community, really. looking for themselves, particularly if you're in spaces where you don't see yourself reflected, we make it. And so how do we enable companies to tap into what we have as a resource to help us also accomplish what we're trying to do, which is bringing more laborers into this field?
You know, it's interesting to me. I was having a conversation the other day that the buying power of the black race is at $3 trillion, right. But yet our poverty rate is still where it is. Yeah. Listening to you talk about how we make things hot, yeah. You know, we buy in, and when we buy in, everybody else buys in. And I'm also listening to you talk about how you took a chance from having a great career, one-way ticket, and a vision. What is it going to take for us to upswing or to uptick from that $3 trillion from a consumer mindset to move that $3 trillion over to the other side and have the entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. A lot. It's going to take a lot. We're done. No, I mean, I think it's about the power of being creators versus consumers, right?
Yeah.
And understanding what that is. And I think it's also going to take us being able to go back and put our money back into our own communities,
yes.
So that we can see how it affects it. It's going to take us being able to call out our friends and family and ourselves when our purchasing behavior doesn't fit what we have, when we're driving cars up to apartments where the car is worth way more than the apartment, yeah. Or even how much you spend on something that you don't own, yeah. Right? Just recognizing that and saying, hey, you could be doing this thing differently, and you know, us putting less emphasis on all these brands. Larry, my business partner, he's like, he rarely, and I don't either, rarely puts someone else's name on his back.
Wow.
Even his dad always told him this, even jerseys.
Yeah.
His dad said, why are you put somebody else's name on your back? So that might mean saying, hey, you know, I understand that we like nice things, but why spend so much money? You go to the mall, go to North Park.
A depreciating asset.
Yeah, and you look at Louis Vuitton store, yeah. And you see us lined up waiting to get into that store.
Yeah.
And you go to our communities and we don't see anyone lining up for
anything,
for very much.
I'm gonna tell you why I asked that, because number one, it's true, and there is a correlation between some of the things you're talking about, because we're not in rooms. You know, we're not in rooms. They're not advertising to yeah. us. They're advertising to their own, mm-hmm. Or not. Once we get not advertising at all.
Yeah.
We're there or we're not there.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, for you, I don't know your story as it pertains to what you were like financially, leaving Chicago, heading back to Dallas. I brought that statement up because many people are afraid to take the risk to walk away from a solid career, yeah. And say, I want to go after my dream.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, what was that like for you economically?
Yeah. I'm going to talk to y'all. So when I left Chicago, I had nothing. I could not even afford to take my stuff with me back to Dallas.
Wow.
I had to leave stuff because I couldn't afford to ship it back to Dallas. I had nothing. My parents, fortunately, let me come back home, move back home. So I was like that approaching 30-year-old guy that sisters be talking about in the barbershop. He's 30, he still live sleeping on his mama's couch. That was me.
Wow.
Like a long time. I stayed at my parents' house from at the end of 2008 until I moved into a house that I've now purchased in 2014.
Wow.
I mean, that's 6 years of.
How did you feel?
First of all, I feel fortunate that I had parents that allowed me to do that.
Yeah.
But they only allowed me to do that because my dad made me show him what what my plan was. And I said, okay, I'm gonna be out of here in 2 years, but I couldn't afford to get out on my own because we hadn't raised enough money for me to draw a salary at all. But the progress kept on coming. And so as the progress kept on coming, it said, okay, he's almost there. He's gonna get there, he's gonna get there. Yeah. And so it felt good. I mean, there were times where it definitely felt, you know, embarrassing to a certain degree. I like clothes. I couldn't really buy a whole bunch of clothes, and now, I mean, I wear so I was wearing the same thing all the time. I'll go to industry conferences. And actually, the first time I went to a conference in our industry, and I did not have anything to wear.
Wow.
For the audience I was going to be in front of 300 CEOs of ad agencies, major players in our business. A friend of mine worked at Banana Republic, and she had the store manager allow me to borrow some clothes because we said, hey, this is also going to be a media opportunity. It's going to be whatever, and maybe you're giving them a shout out or not, I don't know. But so I did that, kept the tag in, wore those clothes. When I got back to Dallas, took it right back.
Wow.
Wasn't ashamed of it.
Yeah.
You know, I still wear the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
You got a serious entrepreneurial mindset, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you say that. 2 reasons, okay? You're opening up some good stuff that I want to talk about. Number 1, your father was an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. He understood the language and the process, but you had to have those indicators to prove to him, or that wasn't happening. So I think that's amazing, those of you that are watching. That's why writing the vision is important, because of people that are prepared to help you, they need to see what you're working on, which I think is amazing. Number 2, you practice self-restraint. You didn't have a problem wearing the same thing. Yeah, there were some embarrassing moments, but you learned how to back down because of what was more important. Third thing, when I look at where we are today, going back to that buying power as a people, $1 trillion consuming products, what can you say to our audience tonight that wants to be an entrepreneur, maybe wants to get into marketing, advertising, to convince them that it's okay to live beneath the means so you can accomplish what you're trying to get? Because you're doing it now. You're killing it. You're all over the place. You talk about Ebony Magazine. I mean, you work with the top people. And here you are, 15 years later, still doing it and doing it at a high level. Can you encourage those that could possibly be wrestling in that area? Then I got one more question after that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's definitely okay to do that because the reward is so much greater, and you won't understand what that means perhaps until much later. But it's undeniable that when you have great sacrifice, that you will reap the harvest of that sacrifice, and perhaps even have so much that you won't even be able to keep it all, right? And so the things that you may feel like, oh, I've lost out on this because of that, it's insignificant. They're things. It's a thing. You know, we put too much value on things that we won't be able to take with us, and so it's definitely okay to live. And living, when you said living below your means, I thought, you know, when I learned how to, and I'm still learning, how to live below my means, I'm actually living above the world. Yeah. Because when you're saying living, like, because that's all about consumerism. Yeah. What we're buying, and we were not made to consume. We were made to create. So when we are consuming, we're not living in the image of what God created us to be. So below our means, when we're creating, we're actually living into how God designed us to be by not consuming. Wow. By not consuming, by actually creating opportunities, creating product, doing something. You know, that's it. And so you're gonna have to make a sacrifice, because you won't be able to afford to create if you're just spending your money on things that just depreciate, or things that'll go away, or things that you'll lose.
I want to jump back in about raising money, because you can't start a company without money. And that's one of the main reasons people won't go further into the creative component of starting a company. Yeah. What does that take? How did you do it?
Yeah, I mean, so it all goes back to the plan. It all goes back to the vision, and being able to understand not just the financials, not the financials from a profit, revenue, loss, all that, but just the simple budget. What does it actually take to price out something that you've never done before? And the internet has so much, there's no excuse. You know, this guy said talent imitates, genius steals. And that's
talent imitates, genius steals.
This guy, Ferris Jacob, the strategist.
Yeah.
And so I thought about that, and it's like, cool. There's so much on the internet. You don't have to plagiarize anything. If you I literally Googled and would Google business template for staffing agency, or business template for nonprofit. There's a business plan template. It's there. There are some budgets that are already pre-made, or at least the format of a budget, to be able to know what to pop in. And to make it honest, make the numbers honest, really do the research, so that someone that might be double checking what it is, whether it's a bank or someone, you know, in our case, donors that may want to look at the budget, that the numbers are realistic, that they're not too high, they're not inflated, but they're realistic for what it would take. Even if the numbers are higher than you've ever seen. We've now raised, you know, over almost $7 million over the years. And now we're about to go into a phase where we're going to have to raise $5 million a year, and to be able to increase our capacity, but also to bring on a full staff. Yeah. I'm still essentially a volunteer for what I'm doing.
Yeah, for what you're doing. Yeah, right? Definitely.
So our team doesn't draw a salary either, right? We invest every dollar back into the program, into our alumni.
You're so selfless, man. I mean, you have to be that to succeed in the nonprofit. In the nonprofit
realm, and in the for-profit realm. Yeah. I mean, being able to put other people first. I mean, my dad, hearing him say, hey, he never missed a payroll.
Yeah.
You know, even if it meant a sacrifice of the things that he wasn't able to do, and he did a lot for us, but even some of the things that he wasn't able to do, it's that sacrifice. But I think, you know, the access to capital gap for women, for people of color, is so huge. But there are so many resources now that are available, and so much knowledge, that it's essentially an excuse, a tool of incompetence.
Wow.
That
used to build monuments of nothing.
That stop us from starting.
Wow.
And we should never stop starting, right? And so things might fail, but at least we have no excuse not to be able to go and get the fundamentals, whether you Google it, giving Google too much props. They need to sponsor this, Google. Whether you search for it on the internet, or whether you talk to someone that's a business owner of any kind. And you know, the best advice that I've gotten were from business owners that failed.
Wow.
Because when you learn the failures and the failure of raising money, that there's some insight inside of that. We are approaching, as a nonprofit, our next raise for our capacity efforts in a similar fashion as if we were going out to venture capitalists to raise money.
Yes.
So creating the right pitch deck, knowing, you know, how to DocSend is a website that I use to upload my presentation, and it captures. DocSend will capture, if you make sure that you ask for the person's email to even look at the document, it captures that. And the analytics for the deck, the PowerPoint presentation, or the presentation that we're sharing, it allows me to see how much time that specific individual spent on every single page.
Wow.
So if I see that you've spent a certain amount of time on our financial section, or if I see you spend a certain amount of time on the discussion of our impact, or on our news media, or on our future plans, that's either telling me that that's what you want to know more about, or perhaps that you don't understand. So when I then have the conversation, I'm able to
prepare to retweet,
prepare to hone in on that,
Yeah, absolutely.
or be prepared to understand that you're about to ask me more about that.
Yeah,
right.
I
Maybe
love it.
because if you didn't understand it, I need to make it clear.
Make it more clear. Well, listen, he just gave you really something very simple. If you want to start, research. That there's no reason for you to stop starting. I like that. There's no reason for us to stop starting. Take the power. There's information that is loaded online already, basic fundamental tools that can help you create what it is that you want to create. You've been listening to Lincoln Stevens, and I'm telling you, take this information and do something with it. I love you, Will. We're out of here.
Wow, you guys. I don't even, listen, I didn't want to cut off anything.
Listen.
It was like, are we going to, that's it? Come on. It was amazing.
Breathtaking. But
amazing.
What can you expect? That's every week, every Sunday. It seems like the wheel keeps turning faster and faster, and there's so much more information.
Yeah.
What I like about it is information that we can actually use and apply in our everyday lives. This is not just a Sunday message. You can take this to work. You can take this in your homes, take this in your social lives.
Yes.
This is good information for everybody. Listen.
Love it.
We have so much more coming up, but what I want you all to do specifically for me, I want you all to go to our Instagram page or follow us on Facebook and get you some Will merch. Let me just tell you about this jacket.
You looking fly.
Let me just tell you about this red
I
jacket.
like that.
Pastor Chubman had his on last Sunday. He was killing it with the red and black. I had to go get one. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I saw Pastor Chubman in it first, and I had to go cop me one. I'm just saying.
Nice.
So make sure you all jump on the Instagram page, find that QR code, and get your Will merch. Tell them how to do that.
Yes, what you can do is, like he said, you can go on our Instagram page, find the QR code, you can scan it, or you can actually text Will Merch, that's WHEELMERCH, to 28950. And it doesn't matter where you are, we're going to get it to you.
Right.
Wherever you are.
We'll mail it to you. We'll
mail
box it up all nice and send you
Yes,
your
we will.
Will merch.
Oh,
Listen,
yes, we will.
while you're there, go ahead and follow us on our social media platforms on both Facebook and IG. We can be found at The Will at TPH. Again, that's on Facebook and Instagram at The Will at TPH. Make me a promise. You got 2 promises. You're going to get you some merch, and you're going to come back next Sunday, right? You see, they made a promise, right?
They gotta keep it.
All right.
You have to keep it.
You all have a good time. We'll see you next time.